We'll have tributes to Five Live's Rachel Bland, who died from cancer today. Do we need a new type of capitalism? We'll discuss the migrants landing at Spanish tourist resorts.
He's shouting, look, there are so many of them, as the migrants jump off the boats and run quickly out of camera shot away from the beach.
And Bob Woodward's book on Donald Trump gets the president's attention.
You know, it's a tough look at the world and your administration and you.
Right. Well, I assume that means it's going to be a negative book, but, you know, I'm sort of 50% used to that. That's all right. Some are good and some are bad. Sounds like this is going to be a bad one.
Nick Bryant will look at...
They were left critically ill after the poisonings in March. Russia says the names and photographs of the suspects meant nothing to officials in Moscow. Angus Crawford reports.
Mrs May told the Commons that this sickening and despicable attack was not a rogue operation. It was part of attempts to undermine UK security, and although carried out by military intelligence, must have been approved at a senior level of the Russian state. British police now have evidence the two suspects flew into Gatwick Airport on March the 2nd, checking into a hotel in East London using the false names of Alexander Petrov and Ruslan Boshirov. The next day, Saturday, the Russian nationals, both aged around 40, took a train to Salisbury to carry out reconnaissance before returning to the capital. On the Sunday, CCTV shows them close to the Skripal's house. It's thought they used a specially adapted perfume bottle to spray nerve agent onto the front door. The suspects then travelled directly to Heathrow and flew to Moscow that night.
A 17-year-old boy, as well as 3 men and a woman in their 20s, have been arrested on suspicion of being members of the banned far-right group National Action. They're being questioned by West Midlands Police after being detained in Nottingham, Birmingham and Halifax in West Yorkshire. The Radio 5 Live newsreader Rachel Bland, who was praised for her podcast which gave a vivid account of her treatment for breast cancer, has died at the age of 40. Her family said she'd left a huge hole in their life they would never be able to fill. Here's Colin Patterson.
Rachel Bland was diagnosed with breast cancer in November 2016, but was still presenting on 5 Live this summer. Last year, she started a podcast, You, Me and the Big C, to challenge the ways that people talk about cancer.
Having Freddie, my little boy, who's 2.5, you have to get up every morning. You know, he doesn't understand what's going on. He gets up in a terrific mood every morning. At the moment, I'm trying not to think too deeply about what the next few months might entail.
It is currently top of the UK's podcast chart. Dame Kelly Holmes, the Health Secretary Matt Hancock and the Deputy Leader of the Labour Party Tom Watson have all paid tribute, with the BBC Director General Tony Hall calling her inspiring.
The tour operator Thomas Cook says tests have identified a high level of the E. coli bacteria which can cause food poisoning in the Egyptian hotel where a British couple died a fortnight ago. John and Susan Cooper from Lancashire, who were both in their 60s, were staying at the Steigenberger Aqua Magic Hotel in Hurghada. But Thomas Cook says the tests carried out by independent specialists don't shed any light on the deaths. Top executives from Facebook and Twitter have acknowledged they've been too slow to act against fake accounts and political meddling. Appearing before a US Senate committee, the Twitter chief Jack Dorsey said the company had been ill-equipped to cope with the number of campaigns trying to manipulate public opinion. Sheryl Sandberg of Facebook said they'd learned lessons and were acting to fix the problem.
We are more determined than our opponents, and we will keep fighting. When bad actors try to use our...
The men who travelled as Alex Petrov and Ruslan Boshirov with conspiracy to murder, attempted murder, possession of a chemical weapon and grievous bodily harm. The Russian Foreign Ministry, which has always denied that Russia had anything to do with the attacks, said the names meant nothing to them. Theresa May told the Commons this morning that the government was certain Russia was behind the attack.
We repeatedly asked Russia to account for what happened in Salisbury in March, and they have replied with obfuscation and lies. This is including trying to pass the blame for the attack onto terrorists, onto our international partners, and even onto the future mother-in-law of Yulia Skripal. They even claimed that I myself invented Novichok. Their attempts to hide the truth by pushing out a deluge of disinformation simply reinforces their culpability. As we made clear in March, only Russia had the technical means, operational experience and motive to carry out the attack.
The Prime Minister also said that the poisoning was carried out by Russian military intelligence, the GRU.
Like a rogue operation. It was almost certainly also approved outside the GRU, at a senior level of the Russian state.
Well, our Home Affairs correspondent Dominic Casciani is here. Dominic, what have we learned today about the suspect?
Well, Johnny, it's been 6 months while everyone's been waiting for some kind of hard evidence to substantiate the Prime Minister's accusations back in March that the Russian state was behind this extraordinary attack in Salisbury. Now 250 detectives who've taken about 1,400 statements and gone through 11,000 hours of CCTV have got a result. The results of sorts because we're not entirely clear of the identities of these men. They're accusing Alexander Petrov and Ruslan Boshirov of attempted murder, or as one newspaper headlines put it tonight, these are the Novichok hitmen. But what Scotland Yard has also done is put an awful lot of the working out into the public domain so the world can judge itself what it's found so far. So let me take you through this. Petrov and Boshirov are both approximately 40 years old. We don't know their exact date of birth because detectives and the intelligence agencies, as we've heard, have concluded these names are aliases for two members of the Russian GRU military intelligence agency. Both men are light-skinned and dark-haired. You can see their pictures on the BBC's news website. Petrov has a receding hairline. Boshirov has a distinctive, well-groomed beard. Now, we know they arrived in the UK on Friday, at some point, and dumped the bottle there themselves, but I stress that speculation as police are still trying to investigate exactly what happened to the bottle. Once back in London, exactly what happened to the bottle. Once back in London, the two men, the two Russians, it's at 7:28 in the evening, and 3 hours later they were in the air. So in all, they were in the country for just 80 hours.
Dominic, fantastic, astonishing detail. Thank you very much indeed. The two men named today are alleged to have been part of the GU or the GRU, Russia's military intelligence operation. I asked Mark Galeotti, an expert on Russian security from the Institute of National Relations in Prague, about the GRU and the prospects of the two ever seeing a British courtroom.
Well, the GRU, actually technically these days it's actually known as the GU, but everyone still uses its old initials, is Russia's military intelligence agency. But that only really goes part of the way towards explaining it, because obviously Britain, for example, has defence intelligence staff. The GRU is a much larger and much more comprehensive organisation, as well as sort of classic spies. It also includes special forces, the Russia's so-called Spetsnaz, and beyond that it also has its own electronic intercept and hacking services, so it's a little bit like it also has a side order of GCHQ.
Do we have any idea how big it is, how many people it employs?
It's difficult. I've seen numbers from 50,000 to 70,000, but the trouble is it's hard really to draw a comparison because a lot of these are actually just soldiers in the Spetsnaz, the sort of Russian SAS. But it's certainly, it is larger than the SVR, which is like the Russian analogue to MI6. That much we do know.
We describe it as a military intelligence unit. Does the fact that it is part of the military and that it contains these special forces, Spetsnaz,